Confirmation we're legally posted.
Yes, we are, Mr.
And we do have a committee, forum here today, I believe. Approval of the minutes from the December 7th meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
Second.
Any discussion, changes? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries, no opposition. Public comments. Anyone from the public wish to address the committee? Gentlemen on Zoom, don't believe. Okay, we'll move on to agency reports. Debbie yourself, yes.
I'm Lynn from the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And just to give everybody an update here, not much has really changed. We just continue with our field checks and things that we have to catch up with for the 23 season. Still checking some cover crops, lots of acres planted out there. And making payments under the EQIP program, Environmental Quality Incentive Program. And some precision nutrient management contracts we have, which is for variable rate technology to be used on the cropland with their nutrient applications. We have a few contracts there that we have to finish up payments on. Low disturbance manure applications, those nutrient management things are all something that we have to deal with at the end of the year, end of the growing season. We have close to 100 EQIP applications right now that we're working on the planning, working through the planning process and assessments and ranking those applications. So that's a whole gamut of different conservation practices that we're working on with those applications. CSP, the sign up deadline, Conservation Stewardship Program, that is. The sign up will be through February 9th for 2024 contracting. So applications are always being accepted for any of our programs. But batching dates are set throughout the year. So that's the February 9th is a batching date for CSP. Classic, I think we have probably, let me see, close to 30 applications right now between the two counties, Virginia and Winnebago. I know you're only folks mainly concerned about Winnebago, but they kind of have to clump everything together. But here in Winnebago, we probably have 10 CSP applications right now that we'll be working on. And then I guess we always have our other signups available, wetland restoration program or easement program. And there's funding for significant funding available for all of the programs that we have available coming up with the 2024 year here moving forward. So if anybody's interested in learning any more and a brochure on all of our programs, just let me know. We have them in the office there. So that's what I have.
Thank you for your report. Any questions?
Yeah, on the first application that you were speaking of, how many of those get approved?
We have the 100 environmental quality incentive programs. They'll probably all be approved. I think there's just significant amount of money available for our conservation programs.
That's terrific.
It's a lot of conservation if it's put out there on the land. Yeah. So yeah, it's a workload for sure. Luckily, I got some new people starting and lots of learning to do, but having new people starting to work on some of this stuff is going to be a big help. Super. Thanks.
Thank you for attending and giving a report. Appreciate it. Director's report. Chad?
Hey, good morning, everyone.
Few things I have, we have our Lake Winnebago Land and Water Conservation Association meeting coming up on January 19th. That will be here. That is our planning meeting that we plan for the budgets and basically the other meetings throughout 2024. And then we have a couple presentations that day as well. We have myself and Andy will be doing a presentation on offshore breakwalls. And then Carrie, forget her last name, but she's with Glacierland RCD. We'll be talking about break mighties and their program that they have for controlling break mighties. So yeah, that's on the 19th. If you're interested in signing up for that.
We still have time for that, sign up.
Yes, I think it's to the end of next week.
Okay.
The deadline for that. And I wanted to give you all an update on, our livestock waste management ordinance. We got a little pushback from one of the landowners on the permit fee. So they put up a building, a facility and an animal lot. And that fee is $300 for the facility. And if it's an after the fact, it's doubled to $600. They're questioning that because it's more than 2 years ago that statute of limitations applies and they shouldn't have to pay that. So I got opinion from Corporation Counsel, and because it's a permit fee, it doesn't apply. They need to get the permit and that doesn't apply. It's not a penalty that we're charging them for, which we could, but we're not doing that. We're just getting them into compliance with the ordinance.
Which is the 300 bucks.
It would be 600.
Okay,
So it's 300 and then it's double because they did not get a permit. Is how that works. Otherwise, we could be fining them $250 a day for every day there's a violation.
that would be where the statute kick in.
It could,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're talking two different things and I'll be reaching out to that landowner fairly soon to let them know that. I don't know if they're gonna push back or if they'll be cooperative, but they could come to committee and appeal it if they wanted to. We'll see where that goes.
Just out of curiosity, if they had properly applied for the permit,
Yep.
would they have to have a lot of design work and would they have spent quite a bit of money to provide the right paperwork to show what they're building and how they're building it?
We handle most of that in-house here. So for this one, it was a building with stalls that was put up and then they fenced in an area that they can't maintain vegetation. So that would be deemed a livestock lot. So we put the maps together showing the location of the facilities, showing the setbacks. We identified the well, any type of hydrology, that's all put on the maps with the setbacks to make sure they're met and that we do all the paperwork. So there isn't a whole lot they have to provide for something like that. Now, if it's a manure storage, that's a whole different thing.
The reason I say that, I mean, I put in a seawall and by the time I figured out what it was gonna cost me to have somebody do all the design work, it was cheaper to put it in and pay the penalty and pay the double permit fee
Yeah,
and get an after the fact permit than it was to go through the whole process prior to.
right. And we don't require like building designs, any of that. We don't
Okay.
require any of that. Now, again, if it's manure storage, then we need a full-blown design. And
Gotcha.
that's done either by a private engineer or our department could assist with that as well.
And what was his excuse for not getting a permit to begin with?
So part of the problem we were having is they go in to get their building permit from the town.
Okay,
Town should be asking, is it gonna house livestock? So this is, Sheila's been doing a great job at doing more outreach to the towns to educate them. Every year we're sending out letters. They're putting up a building, ask if there's gonna be livestock, and that's the trigger to send them to us.
and every 2 or 3 years you can have a whole county clerk that isn't.
Unfortunately, what we had happen was a couple different towns, when they either, zoning, when they looked at the zoning, what they read was that, an animal lot or a permit is required. And basically they were using the standards of, what is that called? Citing. So 500 animals or more.
Oh,
If they
yeah.
would have looked at the next part of that paragraph that explained that what an animal lot is and what is considered an animal. So in the citing, it's generally cattle. On an animal permit, it's it's cattle, it's horses, it's ducks, it's chickens, it's goats, it's the whole 9 yards, but they were only reading the top portion of the zoning.
Gotcha.
So then they were saying that horses are not considered animals, that they're considered pets, and that is not true. So that is where the big problem came in, is a couple of people who didn't read the whole definition of animal.
So our hopes are with this outreach that it's gonna get better and better, we have
Yep.
less of these after the facts. Is the-
You're on top of it.
Yeah,
Well, and it does beg to say, beg for forgiveness rather than permission. And hopefully at some point we'll get past that.
yeah, yeah, we wanna try to work with these landowners and not have to cite them. Worst case, we do have citing authority if we have to, but we wanna try to get them in compliance. Have it be voluntary, work with us, get their permit and not have to go there, but we'll see. See where some of these go. There's a handful of them that we're working on right now. So. Okay, kind of on the same topic of our livestock waste management ordinance, we are working on the light food manure pit abandonment. Just to refresh your memory, they had filled it in and didn't abandon it properly, so we got equip funding through NRCS, and we were out there, I was out there last week checking on it, and they're actively working on construction, and hopefully that'll be done in a week or two to get that properly abandoned. So they have to pull all the manure out, contaminated soil, we get it scraped down to where we don't see any manure in the soil, and then we can go in and fill it back in, and then we crown it to properly abandon it, and it's abandoned according to design standards.
And the soil with manure in it that you're pulling out of there, what happens to
That
that?
needs to get spread, and it
Yeah.
needs to meet our setbacks and follow a nutrient management.
Okay.
Yes, they consider that contaminated
Okay,
soil, yeah. So that's what we're looking for, you get down to that, we want to excavate it down, we don't see any more manure. So luckily, it's good red clay, and it's looking pretty good.
nothing goes through, but
Big chunks, so that one should be done soon, and then they will be in compliance with our ordinance. Our Upper Foxwell Demo Farm Network, that agreement has to be renewed, that is expired. I'm waiting on Oaxaca County to get me that new agreement, it's gonna be a multi-year agreement for the Demo Farm Network. And I'm anticipating that I'll have that for the February meeting for you to approve, and that it would advance the county board for that agreement, so. That's with, it's the regional efforts on the Demo Farm Network. We have 3 farmers now that are in our county that are part of that Demo Farm Network doing innovative practices throughout the region. So our 3 farmers are Jamie Albright, Rick Gerke, and the new farmer is Jim Lickey, who's part of our producer-led group, the producer-led group Honey Bottom Farmers. So that will be advancing hopefully in February. The last thing I have is just for future LCC meetings. What we're looking to do is during the cold and flu season to keep having the meetings in here where we can spread out a little further, just to be safe to not spread anything. So that'll be from basically, we're looking at December through March, we'll have the meetings in here. And then from April through November, we're gonna be meeting in meeting room D, which is just adjacent to our department. So it's a little smaller room, but it's easier to reserve that room. Sound should be a little better, and it's a lot less setup for us as far as getting a big room set up in here. And then we don't take up the space for other events as well. So we'll be starting that this year. So we'll be here through March, and then the April meeting will start in meeting.
Everybody good with that? Of course, the committee could change, but, for between now and April, we're good. Thank you.
That is all I had for announcements.
Thank you, Chad. Chair's report, we have 2 people excused today, and I believe that will be Bruce. I don't see him soon. And Julie Gordon is asked to be excused. And then I want to tell you a little story that I ran into when I was circulating nomination papers. I always go to Wilde Farms. I don't know if you're all familiar with their farm. They run about 2,000 acres in the town of Inland. And while I was there, which takes about an hour, they have a new piece of machinery sitting out there, by their shop out there, that I thought was kind of interesting. It's blue, painted blue. And I said, well, what's that all about? And then they proceeded to tell me it's what's called a strip till machine. It costs a little over $300,000. And they have started a practice where they're no longer gonna use commercial fertilizer. They're not using solid or liquid fertilizer. They're using some kind of a bio type system. Now, if you're looking at it from a conservation point of view, that is really probably top of the game, what they're implementing. So I would suggest we need to be more aware of that. Perhaps we can have a little oversight on one of our committees coming forward to kind of explain what that's all about. And one of the reasons they're doing it, they claim their production, especially with corn and beans, is up substantially. So they're using no fertilizer, no pollutants, no phosphorus, and they're getting better crops. According to, pretty much Danny is the one that's pushing it, that would be Dale's grandson.
Chuck, do they still use nitrogen on the corn?
No,
Really? Okay.
no, I'm told they're not using none of the three, nitrogen, phosphorus, or potash. They're using some kind of a liquid, which is what this machine puts in the ground apparently, because it's kind of like a all one-shot deal. I don't know if it plants or not, that I didn't determine, but.
So what is their reasoning? Is it money savings? Is it environmental, or what are they planning?
My impression from what Dale was saying, and David was there, Danny was not. Is that they're concerned about where the country was going in regard to restrictions placed on the farmer. And they're concerned about obviously conservation. They don't want to pollute any more than anybody else, you know, so. That seemed to be the best alternative, even though it's a substantial input cost upfront. Long term, they figure that's the best way to go. And they've been going out of state to seminars, Iowa, Nebraska, different places to learn about this process. So they have implemented it on their farm out there, so.
Are you familiar with this, Sheila? What they're doing?
Wilties have never been real easy to work with. I should just say just failed. So since, yeah, we never have actually approached wilties for anything.
Okay.
Tom got Dale riled up back in 2013 and we just left it alone.
So does the acreage then become organic?
Them are questions I can't answer. I don't know. That's why I suggested we might want to look into it, because I think we'll be able to get a more defined.
I'm not sure if they're
Response.
using a biological, they're still using a product. So I don't know how the organic certification works with biologicals.
It's some kind of a liquid bio something that they're putting in, I assume when they plant. To help with the production of the seed growth
You
and,
can put biologicals on all year long. So it depends on what they're using and. what
Yeah.
their ideas and-
there's a sprayer part of it's got a big tank sitting on it, so.
Okay, so you would assume that they would be putting it on, they might also be putting it on later, and on the surface or on the leaves. So there's, depends on which product they use, what the purpose is and.
Yeah.
And when they would use it.
So I bring this up because it's new, it's innovative, it's very conservation oriented type practice, obviously, so
I'm thrilled that they.
hopefully we can.
So I'm gonna have to go out there and meet them and,
Yeah, tell them I sent you, because I didn't get permission from Dale to let everybody know what's going on. He tried to get some of the neighboring farms, that would be Cundy primarily, to buy into it, but they wouldn't do it.
Could y'all explain to me what strip tilling is?
Well, and I'll certainly let you elaborate on this. And instead of working up a field, where you work the whole field up, they leave it, after, when you change over, of course, you're gonna have some residue on the field, right? They come in and they don't work it up, they just till in a strip. Narrow strips, and then they plant within that strip. So everything between the strips has not been tilled.
Okay.
Would I be correct on that?
Yes, you're correct on it.
Yeah.
And then, well, they make them strips in the fall. Sometimes you'll see fields with strips in it
It's got green growing in the middle.
Yeah,
and lot. And then in the spring they come back and plant in them strips and they have to use satellite to plant with. Otherwise, actually they use satellite to make them strips. And then they come back in the spring and they can follow the same exact path.
thank you.
Do they rotate then, out here, they move over a couple feet?
It probably could.
Yeah,
It's, you talk about the satellite that
GPS,
intrigues me. I can remember my grandfather looking at a cornfield and saying, they better get the same team of horses when they pick it because the roads were so crooked.
I remember George Dodd used to have a big thing about that one, he's my neighbor. Of course, he passed away, but his big thing is all the roads gotta be straight, you know, if they're crooked, you got a problem. Yeah, so.
Just,
Now that all the tractors are GPS, we're talking huge money for these tractors. $500,000, that's.
Is it possible to talk to one of the Wildies and see whether or not they're willing to come here and just explain what they're doing?
Yes,
I find it very
but
interesting.
it certainly wouldn't be Dale, it wouldn't be David. Some of, the farmers I know don't like to speak publicly.
Yeah,
So if there's one of them that doesn't have that concern, perhaps we'll get it here. But first of all, before we do that, can we get together some kind of a background report from our department?
I mean, you
I
probably,
don't wanna add you the workload here, but
biologicals in general, there must be a lot of information, like agronomy world, about that, everything should, right? We can put together a little just overview of it,
Sure.
that work.
what do you think? I'm sure you're
There's
aware.
lots of biologicals. There's a lot of new ones out there that are good. There's probably some that probably aren't so good too.
So there's a lot of variety.
There's a lot of variety out there, the
Yeah.
last couple of years especially.
Okay, well, good,
Chuck,
that's something we
can I
need
tell
to
you-
be aware of. Yes,
just wanted to add that, we do try to encourage strip tilling and it's considered no-till as far as our definition of, conservation tillage. So it's basically, if we do a contract with somebody for, strip till, it's actually a payment that would be, no-till, strip till is actually considered the same, even though they are allowed that strip of tillage, less than 30% of the field is disturbed, and it is still considered no-till for us. So I think the biologicals just help that cycling of nutrients in a no-till system to decompose that organic matter and keep the the nutrients cycling naturally. And that's why the reduction in fertilizer usage is significant.
but we don't have a long-term record of that, so it's been practiced by somebody, let's say for a 5-year time span.
I don't,
Okay.
there was, a producer in Outagamie County who implemented it years ago. A big farmer, bought all the equipment, did it, and it's really great to hear somebody being, successful with it, because he just went back to tillage. He sold all the equipment after a couple of years and said, this doesn't work. And, unfortunately, so, yeah, it's great to hear that,
Yeah, I mean,
biologics, maybe that is the missing thing that he wasn't doing. Because he had issues with it.
hopefully, Wilder's research has indicated that it's a viable long-term practice because
Ken
Of the
Tran
investment.
and Nepieskin has been, strip tilling for years. It's out here.
Yeah.
It's around. Yeah.
Good.
You're committed to it, you make it work.
Yeah. We do have the strip till in our spirit funds that we use the NRCS, standard for our no-till, which is no-till strip till. So it is we do cost share that.
Through all my years of studying, I was always told there's enough fertilizer or nutrients in the ground for about 900 years, if we can unlock them. And I imagine they're trying to unlock the nitrogen and the phosphorus and potassium.
Okay, well, we'll pursue that as we go forward, and the committee can be more aware of it.
One more thing, do the farmers that you were, talking with, do they know about the fact that they can go about getting X number of dollars per acre?
The only discussion was, apparently they were having discussions with NRCS and, are running into some concerns about that. I won't elaborate on that, but, that's the only thing they mentioned. They didn't mention, any approaching this department at all at this point, so. Going forward, maybe that all come together, hopefully, because obviously they have a very large investment, so they're looking to recoup some of that through funding programs if they can.
Sure.
I'll check with Mary and see if she's,
They don't have any trade management then.
okay, well, I'll check with Mary and see if she's talked with them.
Okay, thank you. Just an awareness, we'll move on to the business items of the meeting. The first one is, agenda item A, and that's discuss the climate smart agronomy sub-award agreement with this department, Land Water Conservation and Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance. You should have a contract, I believe. That'd be correct in calling it a they call it an agreement.
Yeah.
Sub-award agreement. So we're looking at a lot of money, $775,000.
A lot of money coming into the department, and there's a lot of money out there, like Lyndon mentioned, with the federal government and USDA. And this is part of that award. So this is the Climate Smart Commodities Grant that was awarded to Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance. I'll kind of go over it in just a short presentation here, but there's multiple counties involved, but for our department, it's about $750,000 that we'll be bringing in to this department for these efforts. So I'll kind of just walk through some of my slides here, and then hopefully that answers a lot of your questions. And if not, I'll do my best to answer them, but
So we're getting the money and Fox Wolf is going to administer the funds.
yes, so there's a few layers here. So our Edge Dairy Cooperative got a higher level grant. There's a sub award with Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance with 8 counties. And then we have a sub award with Fox Wolf Watershed Alliance for our part of it, is how it breaks down. So this kind of explains higher level what it is. So we have the sub award from Edge Dairy, like I just mentioned. There is going to be 8 staff hired in the region, including Winnebago County. Will start advertising within the next month for one of those positions. We're going to be calling it a grant soil health specialist. This is the whole basin, the Upper Fox Wolf Basin. Part of the grant has money for new equipment. So that will be soil health equipment. It could be interseeders. We're not sure yet what that's going to be or where that equipment's going to be housed, but it's going to be accessible for farmers in the region. So that needs to be discussed yet, where that equipment's going to be housed and what we're going to buy with the grants. There's farm progress reports that will be handled. That's a full progress report on the farm. We're on the hook for 25 farms in the county. And it's 2.7 million in cost sharing for soil health initiatives and incentives. So partners would be Brown County, Calumet, Fond du Lac, Outagamie, Shawano, Washara, Wapatna, and us. And then Fox Wolf again would be the partner with all those counties. So for our county, what we'll be looking at over the next 3 years roughly would be to sign up 2,000 acres of cover crops and no-till. So it's installed as a system. So it has to be both cover crops and no-till. And then we have some money for 500 additional acres of low disturbance manure application as well. And there is additional money through another Smart Commodities Award that was awarded to Fox Wolf. So if we sign up those 2,000 acres, there is more monies available that we could go after if need be. Again, the farm progress reports are a minimum of 25 farmers. And we will be hiring a new position that's all been approved in the budget. Again, it'll be a 3-year grant position that I'll be advertising soon, and we will see. One of the counties got their job announcement out this week. So hopefully we get our hours out soon, because it's gonna be competitive with finding good people. You know, you're looking for 8 similar positions in a region during a market where it's hard to find people. So we'll cross our fingers, but I think Winnebago is a pretty desirable place to work, so we will see. Again, the equipment will be purchased by Fox Wolf, and the details of where it's stored will be upcoming for that. So the agreements that you have in front of you, so they're structured to have a full-time position for 3 years. And that starts, it's a 5-year grant, so once we get somebody on board, as long as we fall within that 5 years, the clock starts ticking when that person gets on board. And if for some reason it's not full-time and they want to go 3/4 time or half-time, that would just extend it. So I have a certain amount of funds to use for that position. And it's just gonna be, when it's gone, and the position will expire at that time unless we decide to find other monies for that position through another grant or another avenue to continue it instead. So these positions they're gonna be focused on farmer recruitment to sell soil health initiatives. It's gonna be building relationships. They're gonna be there for technical assistance, and then the cost sharing. So they'll be developing the cost share agreement. And going out and doing field verifications on the fields to make sure these practices are installed. One thing that will probably happen is we're looking at this as a regional project. So the different staff will be crossing borders, different counties, and helping out. So I anticipate that happening with this grant. And they're going to be attending workshop meetings, trainings, roundtables, field days, and they'll be checking in monthly with Fox Wolf. So the part I've been hesitant the whole time with this grant is finding 8 people. I'm pretty sure they're gonna be fresh out of school, and trying to get them trained. It's a 3-year grant. It's gonna be very challenging at the least to get these people trained. Fox Wolf is going to set up a training program on steroids, I'll call it, where they're gonna have all of them through these trainings to try and get them trained. And there's gonna be an agronomy team created that they'll be a part of, and then we'll have our seasoned staff like Shield that'll be a part of the team where they can be there as a great resource to help out as well. So the first hurdle is going to be hiring the people and finding them and then getting them trained. And then the other thing I'm concerned about, and being a little transparent here, is you're in a 3-year grant. It gets to year 2. What are you thinking about? My project, it's coming in, and I'm going to start looking for a job. So are we going to keep somebody here for 3 years? I hope so. But we'll see. We'll see where this all goes.
It's a good resume, Golden.
It is.
And what are the requirements? 2 years or 4 years?
I have on there 4-year preferred, but 2 years is okay with experience. So either or would be fine with us. And I did not require CCA certification for it because I thought that was a big ask for a 3-year position. Some of the counties are asking for it, but I did not go in for 3-year.
Define CCA.
Certified
Crop advisor.
crop advisor. So Sheila's certified, and you have to go through a pretty intensive exam, and
Beyond your schooling or while you're?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm required to have 40 credits of learning every 2 years.
So wise not to require that.
That's-
That would be a big inhibit.
you would lose a lot of people for that.
And this has got to look great on the resume.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, this would. I mean, it's a great stepping stone for somebody out of school, and the pay is decent. So, and again, there's no guarantee it'll just end. I'm just gonna assess it a couple of years down the road to see if there's any grants available or if it's something we want to continue. So
Now, you mentioned that is for what tillage does this apply to?
this will be no-till, and I think strip-till,
Do we adopt the federal standards of
Yes.
strip till?
it's gonna be, it's a USDA grant, so it's gonna
Okay.
probably follow their.
So strip till would qualify.
Yep.
And 2,000 acres?
2,000 acres. Yep.
These, I know guys got that right up front.
Well, it's limited to.
Yeah, you want to spread it around, I'm sure.
100 to 500 acres.
Yeah, but we could do 500 acres and,
Well, that would be a good start. They need to be aware of this, obviously.
right,
Yeah.
yep, and we'll have to be.
Chuck, now that I know that they're open to conversation, I will come and visit them.
Mention my name when you go
I
over.
will. Thank you.
Might open the door for us.
It's never great, yeah.
So as far as choosing producers, we need to find farmers that realize that they're on the hook for 2 years. So they have to be committed to the no-till and cover crop practices for 2 years. We want to work with them to prepare the field so it's successful, so it's gonna take a little bit of education with them. We're gonna work with them to think about their rotation, their manure application. There's a lot of things involved when you're not working that field, and that's where the expertise of Sheila, the position, is gonna come into play. It's not limited to just dairy producers. The focus is dairy, but this is wide open to all producers in the county. And we can work anywhere within county boundaries. We want to
Actually,
focus on the basin, but we can work anywhere.
actually, it's, based on the news I just heard, though, gonna have less and less dairy producers.
Yeah, we're seeing them, just like I mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, they're disappearing.
Starting to fade away, so it's only gonna be pretty much capable down the road.
Yeah. Yep, it's definitely trending in that direction. So, as far as payments, they're made only after we verify that the field has been planted. So what we're going to do, again, these are 2-year contracts. It's gonna be one payment made. We're gonna check cover crops and no-till, and we're gonna look at that as one system, and we're paying $78 an acre for that. So that'll be one payment made once both of those practices are verified. The low disturbance manure application is about $28 an acre, and again, that's up to 500 acres. And then at the end of 2 years after they do these practices, then we do the incentive payment of $40 an acre. They're not gonna get that payment until the end of 2 years, and then they get that incentive at the end of it.
So at 500 acre suggestion, that would be 39,000 upfront. After it's planted,
After it's planted and verified that the.
unless you get a backup payment if complete process.
Yep.
So it's quite attractive financially.
We also will have, we can also use our spirit funds up to 100 acres, and then we always, Mary and I share a lot of information on who's out there and, you know, can you cover, we try to see if your program will work or my program will work. So Mary and I do try to work together so that we're not competing with NRCS, that we're working together. When we put our funding together for the spirit funds, we used NRCS's funding, and we had already had this information. So all of that was taken into consideration so that they're all actually, after 5 years or 2 years here, they all actually run right around $98 an acre if you're doing no-till and cover crops. So we set it up where we shouldn't be competing with each other, but working together.
Really good initiative. Everyone agree, you guys thinking the same? I mean, that's big time stuff, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Good, very good.
So a couple of the other incentives would be, there's a $5 acre incentive for basically updating the nutrient management plan, SNAP Plus. So they would update it and they can get paid $5 an acre. And then there's a $625 per producer incentive for, that's the farm progress report. So they go in, they look at the whole farm. I think they're looking at carbon sequestration as well as part of that. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And Outagamie and Foxwell would run those reports, but there's an incentive to the producer for that. So a lot going on. Again, it's a 3-year window on getting these acres signed up. The one thing that I am a little nervous about with the federal government is the reporting side of it. It looks like an absolute nightmare when they showed it to us, but
Who's gonna do that?
Foxwolf is gonna shield us from some of it.
Were you surprised by that?
No.
Yeah.
No, you should see the spreadsheet, Doug. It's just goes on and on and on.
It'll be mad.
Yeah, so Foxwolf is gonna try to dummy it down for the land conservation department, so it's not so overwhelming, and we're gonna be on the hook for reporting quarterly. That we get reimbursed quarterly as well, so if we make any payments to farmers or the staff obviously is getting paid, then we get those funds back to us quarterly.
We also have, funds for nutrient management planning, which is $40 an acre for a new plan. Full farm,
through our department.
to our department.
Yes. Yes.
So that's part of that 285,000. Our money's gonna come out.
That would be the cost here.
No, it says staff,
Oh, no, sorry, yeah, that's staff.
yeah. Right there.
Yep. Yep, that would be the staffing. Yes, I have it. So yeah, so the sub award, I just wanted to review it with you. We reviewed this through the budget already. I don't need any approval. I just wanted to review it with you. We have a few questions for Fox Wolf next week. We're meeting with them. And then once we get those questions answered, I would move forward with advertising the position and getting moving with the grants and hopefully get somebody on board by March for spring planting season is the goal with this. So there's a lot of things, it's pretty much all, this covers almost all of our expenses within the department. It includes a truck, so I'm working on finding a lease for a vehicle. The county's looking at a lease program through Enterprise that we would be a part of the grant. So there's a lot of things that still need to work out, but I want to at least get rolling with it to start getting contracts signed. So the good thing is we're really getting engaged with like the producer-led group, and Sheila and Emily are out talking quite a bit with farmers these days that we should be able to get a lot of acres signed up, and it's gonna dovetail into our Spirit Fund program. Well,
Great, good.
You're talking about a lot of acreage. Can you tell me a percentage of Winnebago County that would be able to be a part of this?
what do we have for egg acres? Do you remember? She was at 150,000.
Sorry, I do not remember.
57
I think it's around 150,000 acres of agricultural land
in production.
in production. That's, it's coming to my mind. So this would be 2,000 acres. And then Spirit Fund, I would have to look back to see what we had set aside for acres. We have a lot of add-ons. It kind of depends on what people do with the Spirit Fund program. But
So that would be a total of 2,000 acres around all of the farms, or would it be one specific farm that could have that 2,000 acres?
so for this grant, they're looking at 100 to 500 acres.
Okay,
And I think we have a little bit of control over what we want to do with that. Our Spirit Fund program is 100 acre max. That's the caps, because we want to spread that money out through that program. And it's really, what we're trying to do is buy management change at the end of the day, to show the farmer the value of doing this. And then get them to hopefully continue it when the money's gone.
sure.
That's the goal.
So of that 700 and some odd thousand acres, we're talking 2,000 acres.
About 150,000 acres.
So you're looking at what, 5% maybe?
1%,
Pardon me,
1%,
1%?
1.5%.
Yeah,
Correct me if my math is wrong, but
probably pretty
Good
close.
start.
It's a start, but remember, NRCS has programs, we have other programs. So again, this just complements the other things going on, and just having another body in our office out promoting this soil health, like Emily, is huge. I mean, that's how we're getting engaged, having positions directly dedicated to working with these farmers, and they gain that trust. Like Emily's gaining the trust of these producers, and it's starting to slowly snowball. And 5 years ago, this wasn't happening like this, that would seem, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, I'd just add that if anybody here of anyone interested in implementing these conservation practices, I mean, there's gonna be opportunities available.
more than ever, right? I mean, we have never seen anything like this right now. It's pretty awesome.
The county, runs out of acres, like from the NRCS, like Sheila was saying, we work together to make sure that people get the assistance they're looking for. So we wouldn't want somebody to come in the door and say, oh, sorry, we can't help you, but we figure out a way.
and correct me if I'm wrong, 1%, 1.5% seems very small. The goal is kind of to get this out there, and hopefully the other farmers are going to see the advantages of this and gradually
Yeah.
bring a quarter, half the farmers into using these practices. Is that?
That's, yeah, I mean, Dan knows farmers talk, and,
Yeah.
this is gonna hopefully help spread throughout the region. And the other goal of this grant, again, it's to get a farm, we're looking at the farm to deem it sustainable. So like your Nestle's, your General Mills of the world will buy products where they can say, this farm is farming sustainable. We want to buy products from them. So that's kind of one of the end goals of this grant too. On getting this farm, so what it would look like to be deemed.
That's where they're carbon.
Yeah. That all needs to be looked at.
If in fact strip tilling it increases your production by 30%, my goodness, wouldn't that be an incentive?
Right, that's everything. You're looking at your inputs, your fuel, you're gonna have less fuel, if you're not working the field as much, and so it's kind of looking at all that, and at the end of the day, what is it looking like for your profit at the end of the day?
Bottom line.
And I will say the programs are starting to pay enough to where it's gonna make the farmers look twice. I think that was some of the issue before.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough money there. That really look at it.
There's enough there to, it's worth taking the risk.
It's worth looking at. Like I say, they'll probably look twice at us.
Especially if they're gonna upfront some of the costs of the machines.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big void is not having the machinery in the area for these farmers to try, so.
Yeah.
That's something, I mean, we do have some, Allegheny has a shed where they have a lot of equipment there, Wapaka has a little bit, but if we can get a few more pieces of equipment in there, it'd be helpful.
Is each county gonna be able to purchase, or is that like
This would be-
region?
Fox Wolf would buy it, they technically will own it, and then we just have to determine where we want to store it in the region.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, once the grant's over, what would happen if it's gifted to that given county or how that's gonna shake out yet. We need to meet and discuss that. But there's maintenance involved. I mean, it's a full-time, like Allegheny, it's practically a full-time position, just keeping that equipment up to running.
I have a shed open down the road here in about 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on that? Well done.
Can I just add to the producers that do start these practices? They aren't gonna immediately see those yield gains in the first year. So it is a time, they have to be committed to it, to understand it. And understand that they might take a yield hit in that first year, because it's a change, and the nutrients aren't cycling the way they can be in the future. But that's what the payments are meant to help them with, to cover that, maybe, reduction in yield potentially, because it's new. I mean, it's not gonna be a for sure thing, it's gonna give me 30% more the first year. But over time, they should definitely see the savings in fuel, equipment, usage and time and all of that, and they factor it all in. Don't just look at yield.
And that's one thing, is 2 years enough? And I think probably 4 or 5 is better to get a real good handle on it. So this is a 2-year contract and we could come with our spirit funds and sign up another 3 years and get them in for 5 years to really keep that system in place for that long. It's just like Lynn's saying, it does take time. It's not gonna happen first year. It's gonna take several years to start to show those benefits.
Any other questions before we move on? Thank you, Chad.
Yeah, well,
Thank you, Sheila.
one more, that is, we are a society of instant gratification. I'm wondering if this 5 years is gonna work.
It's patience. I know.
Hey, that's one of the lessons I continue to learn.
So Kay, when I started here, in 2013, you could drive around it and it was, in the winter, it was bare ground everywhere. Now we're talking 11, 12 years later, and to me, it is absolutely exciting when I drive down the road. And even if they're not no-tilling, we still have a lot of people leaving their residue over winter. So it's like, we're getting more no-till, we're getting more strip till. And even those that are still tilling are leaving more residue over the winter. So it's just a really wonderful thing to see and realize that it's happened.
Well, and what's fascinating for me is that the very fact I'm on this committee, whenever we're traveling somewhere, I'm always looking to see where is the green grass? What are we talking about here? And that's cool. I mean, it's really kind of neat to be able to say, oh, I've learned something.
Yep, it is.
I'm on the solid waste board. I look at all the big garbage hills all over the country when I'm driving around, so I.
Okay, we're good, Chad?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item here, which is B, and that's review and approve the payment of the 2024 Wisconsin Land and Water Conservation Association annual dues at $2,074.
Can I make a small correction, Mr. Chairman? So
Sure can.
that number I had in there somehow didn't get changed. It's actually $2,108. So you're all away.
Everybody okay with that correction? Sure. Okay, let's, get it on the floor. Do I have a motion to approve or disapprove?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, explanation? I do believe you have an agenda item report that covers that. And you have, the comparisons between the other counties.
Yeah, so they're very supportive of our area association and fighting in Madison, just fighting for our land conservation departments. They hold our annual conference, which you all are welcome to attend. They just do a number of different things on legislation, very, very money well spent at the end of the day working with them.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Agenda item C, update on the nitrogen optimization pilot program. And Sheila, I guess that's probably,
That's me.
your deal. Go ahead, you got it.
So, the nitrogen optimization pilot program is, a grant that is given out by DATCAP. Last year was its first year. And, DATCAP did not get the research results they were looking for, so they've kind of revamped it. What they have done is, before you can write a grant for this program, you have to have your plot design confirmed and approved by UW Extension research specialists. So the reason we're discussing this is I've had several different farmers come forward and ask for our assistance in doing, writing grants with them. So we have, we're talking two different groups that are doing a grant. We have Jamie Albright as a demo farmer, and he is south of Huygen. And then we have the three other producer-led farmers, and they are north of Huygen, so they're gonna be two different grants. One, because they don't know each other, and two, it's geologically better that way, geographically. So we're trying to set this up, or we are setting this up where there will be no money coming through Winnebago County. It will all go through the farmers. We will be basically being a project manager. I already set up the designs for their plots. Their plots have been approved, so we can now go forward and write a grant for each section, each group. So that's our next step, is to write a grant. So what is the nitrogen optimization pilot program? I suppose I should have started with that. For, I don't know, since the 60s, researchers with UW Extension and other places have done research plots with nitrogen to determine how much nitrogen is needed for crops. What they're attempting to do now with this program, and it's not the first program of its type. There's been a lot of them. It's just, this is a newer area for Wisconsin. They want to do it in a field size, and the universities don't have that ability. They only have plot sizes. So they're trying to bring it into reality and get more of a better idea of what actually happens in the field instead of just a little tiny plot. It is not, as far as we know, because things change, but it is not to create problems with the farmers. It's not to say, okay, you did this, so now you can't go above this level of nitrogen. That is not its purpose. The biggest thing that they've been discussing is with the climate change, as we all hear, and the carbon and everything else. We're talking about as the temperatures increase, so is the mineralization of nitrogen in the soil, is that gonna increase or decrease, or how is the climate change gonna affect our soils? And, you know, is it gonna make the nitrogen more plant available? Just all those different things, and so they want the university, DATCAP, USDA, are all trying to stay updated as to what is actually going on, and they want to do it at field level instead of plot level. So, I have a lot of guys that are really interested, especially, Jamie is gonna be using, 4 rates of nitrogen and then 2 rates of manure. Jim is gonna be using 4 rates of nitrogen and cover crops, and then, the other 2 guys are just gonna use 4 rates of nitrogen. So it ends up just, and it's a 2-year program, so they get that opportunity on their own ground to see how things are going. I mean, yes, they will share it, and hopefully we'll learn something from this, and it's not gonna end with this program. I think, you know, this might go on for maybe even 10 years, but then another program will start, because nitrogen is one of those things that will probably always be studied. Because it's an unusual creature for fertilizer. Any questions?
Thank you all for letting me talk as much as I do. My analogy is like a drug study.
Yeah.
And having a placebo.
Yep.
And having the drug that's on trial. And I'm sitting here vacillating in my head, which one would I want to be on? But if somebody chooses to be involved in the experiment, I think that's very exciting.
And the grant will, so you have to do a 0 nitrogen plots. And you also have to, and then they're using 4 rates of a minute, or 4 rates of nitrogen, as I said, 1 is 0. And on those plots, that's why they're, started the grant, was to let these farmers try this, but they'll basically pay for that plot that might end up being no yield. Yeah, so that's kind of what that partially covers. So,
I think, did you mention it was through DADCAP? The
Yes.
funding that we did? Yep.
yeah.
Very good, Sheila. Any, other questions for Sheila? Thank you for your update. Where are we? We're on D, I believe. Review and approve the Winnebago County Water Quality Improvement Program, CSA, which cost share agreements. And before you have substantial list and quite a bit of money. Chad, would you like to go through that a little bit? And just for everybody's knowledge, I did, there is a little concern I have about the cost share that's applied to these. I'm told by Chad, it kind of varies. So if you have a question about that, certainly bring it forward, but we'll maybe, try to come up with a little different format as we go forward, so you'll understand what pot of money it's coming from and what the cost share would be from that pot. Chad?
So yeah, they're, since we advanced to a 90% cost share, it gets a little more, I call it crazy as far as contracts and percentages, but at the end of the day, for most of our practices, not all, we're looking at a 90%. So we're trying to get our local county money allocated first, and the max of that is 70%, and then we're taking the spirit funds for 20%. So that's why you see contracts that are with 2 different landowners, just getting them to that 90% cost share. So it does get a little confusing, but I'll go down the list here for the 23 water quality improvement program projects. And the first one I sent around a map. This is Rick Grundy. So he is our most recent applicant for our soil health challenge. That is, again, soil health initiatives, no-till and cover crops, and they're looking to do it for 6 years.
Is that the yellow area?
That would be the yellow area. So the field is a 49.5 acre field. It's a 20-acre maximum for that program. So we wanted to have it right along the road frontage on County Road D, just outside of Winnebago. So we'll get some signage there. We'll have a field day. But again, just to remind all of you, these payments start out around $50 or $60 in the first couple of years. And if they would per acre, and if they make it till that 5th or 6th year, it goes up to $150 an acre. So we're holding that nugget at the end, so they stay, like I mentioned earlier, through that 6 years, because that's where you really see the value with no-till and cover farms for a long-term system. So,
Real quick.
Yeah.
That, without even realizing it, that actually ends up being the exact same price as the Planet Smart, NRCS, and Spirit Fund.
oh, really?
Oh, really? You added them up, huh?
Yep.
Yeah.
So a nice thing with this is it is a 6-year program. And they would be on the hook for allowing us out there for field days, signage, and Rick was all on board. So that will be the one we advance for the next 6 years through the county program.
And the money, there is for the entire section.
That would be the entire 6 years. Correct. So then I'll just walk down through the line here. We have County properties in the town of Black Wolf, that's shoreline protection of about 100 feet. They're also doing, it's a different parcel, that's why you see the same name, but it's a separate parcel where we're doing a shoreline buffer on the lake. That's 32 lineal feet of that, where we do native plantings. Bowen Farms, we are allocating 20,000 for that. That's a manure pit abandonment. Bruce has a big manure pit that we've been wanting to abandon it for a while, and Bruce wants to get that done this year. So we're doing, that's 70% of 20,000, and then we'll do the other contract after we get the bids back in 2024 to get them a 90% cost share in the abandonment.
Just confused, frustrated, whatever. The farmer goes into farming, he builds a pit to maintain the manure. And then when he goes out of farming, the county pays to help abandon that manure pit. It's, you know, I had a underground gas tank, and when they said I had to remove that, nobody helped pay me to remove it and take care of the pollutants and so forth. I just, and it's not just Bruce, it's anybody. It's like,
It is.
you go into farming and you sell the milk and you hopefully make a profit. And then when you decide to get out of it, the county's on the hook for what you built.
And that's, you know, so manure pits are also an eligible practice that can be cost shared. We've taken the stance that unless it's a new farmer, we only do up to 25,000. Otherwise, we do not cost share manure pits. We will send them to NRCS to apply through EQIP. Abandonments are an eligible practice as well through us, through federal government. Part of the reason is a lot of pits were built before standards and specs. And I had one that I abandoned probably about 10, 15 years ago. It was right on top of bedrock. The pit, he scraped it. That's where the pit was for 20 years. We want to get that sealed and get it done correctly. So it is a groundwater concern with some of these. And that's why it's better for us to get involved, get it abandoned, and then it's done. Now, manure pits digging, not all counties do this. Some counties will find hundreds of thousands of dollars for the farmers. And we have the philosophy within our department that we just don't want to be spending that much on the installation of a manure pit. But the abandonment, I feel like it's a good conservation practice for groundwater to protect it. And you know it's done and certified. Yeah, that's the thought process behind it.
And that hopefully avoids Lightfoot's ones where they just try to bulldoze it over and pretend it never existed.
Right.
And there are a lot of those out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that one we will be designing this winter and getting that done this year. Kurt Sadelska, he's actually on the call here. We're doing a nice project out there. He's in the town of Black Wolf. We're looking to do some enhancements on his property and put in a wetland restoration, a scrape, and do some seeding out there and really make a nice improvement on that property there. So this would be one of the agreements we're looking at the 4,700. And then there'll be another agreement with this as well to get him the fund for that.
Up to the 90%, that's what, but
Yeah, I think that one. There might be a scrape at 70%. I would have to double check. It's 70 or 90%. Or scrapes are at 70% cost share unless we have a borough. That we can do 90%. So
How many acres are involved in that?
How many?
In the restoration?
that one is
7/10.
0.7, 7/10 of an acre will be created.
3/4 of an acre.
Yeah. But I think that's at a 70%. And then Paul Delcor, that's on Lake Poyen. He has some erosion on a peninsula that we go in and do some riprap to get that corrected. So that is washing pretty bad on that. Then if you flip the page, so this is still the county program, but these are the 24 contracts. So we got all the $23 allocated. It was like a factory in our department in December signing cost share agreements. It was just crazy. Between getting signatures and notarizing and getting everything taken care of, but we rolled into 2024 already. We're starting to sign agreements in the county program. We have Gary and Eileen Call. That is a grass waterway, and then there is a crossing with that as well to get equipment across. And then Jeff Miller is a egg sediment base that we'd be looking to do. So the total estimated cost is at 23.5, and then we have 4,700 set aside for that. So that would be the county program.
Do you want to approve that individually as a committee? Two separate documents, you want to do them all together?
It's two separate business items, Chuck.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the water quality improvement program cost share agreements?
So
So move.
A motion, second, I have a second. Any further discussion? Questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Opposition, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, the next thing is the Spirit Fund program.
So this is where we are going to be supplementing some of these projects, not all of them, but some of these to get up to a 70 or 90% cost share. So the first one is Kurt again for his wetland restoration. This would be the Spirit Fund program to approve just under 1,900 to get them the full cost share amount for that project. And we have Kelm Properties again, that would be for 1,481. The other Kelm property for the buffers at $261. And again, Paul Delcor property, that's about 2,400. And then Melvin and Lois Selly. This would be, we already had a county program contract approved earlier in the year. This would get them up to 90% for putting that in this year for a grass waterway. So that's about 2,376. And then we have one lone well abandonment, which we did completely through the or the Spirit Fund program. And that's a 50% cost share for a well abandonment of $450. It's a low priority well. That's why it's 50%. If it was high priority, just to remind you, that would be 90% cost share.
Do I have a motion?
moved.
So,
Second,
one second.
Motion and a second. Discussions? Questions? I do have a question, and certainly I'm sure the committee is very pleased, but do you know of any person or applicant that was encouraged to go forward with the project because of the increased funding? I mean, did you have a couple of sitting on a fence for a year or so, and now we got a better funding opportunity, so I'm looking for that.
It feels like getting these funds allocated was, I mean, it was a lot of work, but it felt easier. We have projects that'll be coming that have lined up that we haven't even signed up. So I don't know if that's because of that additional cost sharing or we're doing more outreach, but it feels like it's becoming easier to sell some of this with the 90%.
Good,
It feels that way.
the program is working. Any other, discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. Okay, we did E. I think we're down to F. review the land water conservation project list.
Yes, so this is end of the year where you're gonna have two of them in front of you. So the first one would be the 2023 year-end list. And what was added to that was Richard Grundy for his soil health challenge that we added, and then Ron Shuttle for his well abandonment. And then what I do then at the end of the year is I take off all the installed projects, and then any of them that we know probably aren't gonna happen, I pull them off the list. And then it's easier on your eyes for 2024, the font gets larger, because the list gets a little smaller, and then we'll keep adding to that like we always do throughout the year. I might have to go to 2 pages this year, I have a feeling.
Any questions in regard to the project list? Okay, thank you, Chad. Hearing none. The department's doing a great job. Really great. You also have the meeting schedule. That's not on the agenda, but I assume we've already, set that here, and if there isn't any concerns about that, I'll request a motion to adjourn. We completed our agenda.
So move.
Second.
All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your attendance today.
Now Chuck wants to sign a lot of agreements.
Yeah. Okay, let's get it done.